In this video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the basics of Maya. So just getting into the program for the first time can feel a little bit overwhelming and daunting, but I'm going to kind of try to help you through this just a little bit. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn on anti-aliasing real quick with this button here. It's going to make our wireframes and things display a little bit nicer. It's just a visual quality kind of thing that I like to turn on immediately. Next thing I'm going to talk to you guys about is navigation. In order for us to do that, it's probably going to be a little bit easier if we have a piece of geometry to kind of work with. We do have this axis viewfinder kind of thing down here in the corner that'll tell us what we're looking at. If we got the Y up for the world up here and Z going in this direction and X going here. But if we have a piece of geometry, it's going to be a little bit easier for us to see for navigation. So I'm going to go to Create and go to Polygon Primitives and then just do a cube. I do have interactive creation turned off, so I'm just going to hit the option box for this and just take a look at the options, and I'm going to go ahead and reset, and it looks like everything's good there. So I'll hit create for that, and then I'm going to select this cube. I'm going to go into the channel box and I'm going to change the scale of this. I'm going to select here, hold down shift and select this, and I'll change this to 10. Let's try actually 100. So that'll give us a nice size cube in there. Okay, so for navigation, we're just going to hold down Alt and left mouse, and that's going to give us our rotation, just like this. And if we hold down Alt and middle mouse, drag, that's going to pan things around within here. And if we do Alt and right mouse in an up and down kind of motion, that's going to zoom in and out. Okay, so again, Alt left mouse, rotate, Alt middle, it's going to be pan, and Alt right click is going to zoom in and out. So you should get comfortable with kind of moving things around, taking a look at things from a different vantage point. Something else, if you get the geometry off the screen just a little bit or kind of far away, you can always tap F to frame in on something. And if you got multiple objects within the scene, if you just select it, just click it, and then you tap F, it'll focus in on the thing that is actually selected for you there. And it kind of resets the camera and puts it at the center of whatever that thing is. So it makes it really nice to kind of just rotate around this thing. So again, you should just spend a little bit of time and get very familiar with being able to navigate around within the world here. Okay, so after you feel pretty comfortable with that, the next thing that we'll talk about is the interface. And for what we're taking a look here, we're going to primarily focus on the modeling. So if you take a look up in here, you can do these drop-down menus, and you can actually change the interface. So as you see, if we go to animation, effects, any of these, we'll go back to modeling. You can see the menu up here actually changes. So with each one of these menus within here, there's going to be new options for you. So that's going to be a lot to kind of take in at the very beginning, but we're just going to be primarily focusing on modeling, so I wouldn't worry about the other areas too much right now. The other thing to take note is that people make careers out of using just maybe the modeling section, or maybe just the rigging or the animation or the effects. So don't feel bad if you just don't know where everything's at the beginning. It's going to take time to kind of learn where everything's at. But again, people can spend a lifetime in a career kind of focusing in on one of these areas and becoming proficient at it. So just get used to the modeling area at the very beginning. Okay, so that's a little bit about the interface. So now we'll talk about, real quickly, moving, scaling, and rotating an object. So again, if you click off in the viewport, you're going to deselect something. If you select it this way, it's turned kind of this green color. That means you're in this object mode, and you're able to manipulate things using both the translation, the rotation, and the scale. So let's look at the translation real quick first here. And if you hover your cursor over this, you can see it's going to tell you what the hotkey for this is. So if you rest your hand on Q, W, E, R, and within this area, you're going to be able to switch between these things pretty quickly. We get on translate. If you click and drag one of these arrows, it's going to move it in just that one particular axis. So you can see we're moving along the Z-axis, and you can see those values changing on the channel box here. And so if we click and drag here, you can see we're moving in X, and if we drag the green square arrow, we're going to be able to go in the Y-axis. So we've got these little kind of planes here. These are kind of cool. These allow you to move in two different axes all at the same time. So if I click on this plane and just click and drag, you can see I'm moving this object in those two different axes, but it's never going to move it forward in Z. So it allows you to move in these different planes and make sure you're not moving in a third kind of plane within there. Okay, so there's a little bit about translating. Let's take a look at rotation. And again, the hotkey for this, if we hover our cursor over long enough, we got E for the hotkey for this. So this one, the outer ring, is kind of like a free rotation based off of camera. If you click and drag on these other ones, they're going to be a specific rotation in here. And if we hold down J as we rotate, like while we're rotating, you can see it's going to rotate in, it looks like it's maybe 15-degree increments like that. And if you click and drag in these gray areas, that'll allow you to do a free rotate as well within there. So the other thing, let's go take a look at the scale and the hotkey R for that. So if we put it on scale, we've got a uniform scale, which is this thing right in the middle, so it's going to uniformly scale whatever that thing is. Or you can select these within here, and you can see that you got these different axes like this. And if you want to scale in 2 different axes, you can see you can use these planes to do this. So it's kind of interesting. Say you've got something like a tire, and you don't want the length of it to change, but you want the size of the tire to change. You could use one of these planes to kind of scale things out like that. The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is being in object mode versus component mode. So we've been looking at everything in object mode. If you right click over the object, you can say object mode. If you go up here to the interface and you go here, and if you tap F8, you can cycle between object mode and component mode. So let's look at the different components. Let's right click on this object, and we'll say face. Well, first we'll say faces. So faces are these larger kind of polygons, which you can select them. So if we do our hotkey W for movement, you can move a face. You can tap E and you can do rotate on a face like this. And you can scale a face up and down. And you've got all the different controls that we were looking at before on an object, but you're able to do it on a component level. So we've got that for faces, and if we hit F10 or if we right click on here and say edge, we can select an edge, and you can see how changing an edge will be able to manipulate things if we click and drag these in. So we can really start to kind of tweak the shape out quite a bit like this. So it's going to kind of rotate around the object a little bit, and if we right click on here and say vertex, we can select our verts. If you select one at a time, you can move one at a time, and you can still use these planes to kind of move things around. If you want to select multiple things, you can hold down shift, and you can see it's going to add to that selection like that. I'm going to keep adding a selection here, and if I want to subtract from it, I can hold down control, and I can deselect those pieces there. Now we can also just click and drag a marquee on things, and then you can select things that way. So you can see if I see the whole object, I can just select everything there. If I want to deselect some of these points, hold down control, just select that, and you can see how I kind of quickly knew that I wanted to grab all those verts and move them and kind of leave these alone here, just like that. Okay, so that's going to be enough for getting you the basics of navigating around inside of Maya. Just telling you a little bit about the interface. We're not going to get too deep into this stuff, but just want to kind of get you moving on things. And so again, I think it would be a good idea for you to just spend a little bit of time with one of these primitives, navigate around, get comfortable switching between object mode and component mode, and definitely know the difference between a face, an edge, and a vert, and that will get you in good standing.